Hey everybody, welcome to the Acrylic Asylum. I'm Mike Ferris. I want to thank you so much for watching, and please don't forget to subscribe. Also too, don't forget to check out the description box below where you'll find a list of colors and materials that I'm using, as well as links to my Facebook art page where you can like and see other pieces I've done, as well as follow me on my Instagram link down below as well. And at some point I'm going to have my Patreon put together where you can get more in-depth teachings and tutorials. So let's get started. So I'm just taking my 2-inch flat brush now to get started with, and just a tiny bit of water. I'm going to cover my canvas with just a little bit of dampness to help the paint flow better. And now I've got my palette, and I'm taking permanent black and some phthalo blue. This is going to be just a base color pretty much for the space sky. So I'm going to scoop that up and I'm just going to lay that down like so, and pretty much just cover the canvas until it's all smooth. And so what I'm going to do in this painting is contrast two complementary colors, which would be orange and the blue that's going to be going down, because complementary colors really draw the eye in the most out of any other colors that are used with certain particular ones. So like for instance, red and green are complementary, and in this piece the yellow and the blue, or I'm sorry, the orange and the blue is going to be what's complementary and really draw the eye in. So there's going to be this nice radiant look to it. So now I've taken a toothbrush with some titanium white and lots of water, and as you can see I'm flicking that now with the bristles, and in an instant I'm creating the whole universe. So being that I live in Hawaii where it's very humid, I don't really want to spend hours waiting for this to dry before I apply more coats, so I'm going to be using this hair dryer on medium heat to dry layers often in this piece, because I want to really build up layer after layer to create a lot of depth and color and brightness. So now I've got my natural bristle brush, and you can use any size you want, and I'm just going to take now some of that background color, which is that phthalo blue and the black that you see here, and with that I'm going to add some titanium white to that to brighten it up. And this is going to be the start of what's going to be sort of this cosmic gas sort of sky. And I have not put any water on my bristles because I'm going to dry brush this, so more or less what I'm doing is scrubbing this on, and as the paint becomes less on my brush, as you can see, it gets more faded, and in this way it creates more of this cloud effect. And as I come down, you can see that right in here it looks very transparent, and you can still see the stars through it. And so this is the effect I want to get, and this is one of the things that dry brushing does to create that transparency. If you don't have if you don't have the matte medium, which is what you use to make colors transparent, this dry brushing technique certainly works as well. So I've taken a little phthalo green now and some titanium white into that color, and I'm just going to change the flavor a bit, and I'm just going to go in and do the same thing. And even if you do have a lot of color on your brush, the amount of pressure you apply on your brush is really how much paint you're going to lay down. So when it comes to blending into another color, you want to just gently creep the brush along the canvas and barely touch it, so it's kind of like a gentle sort of brushing that happens, and in that way it blends the colors more together, and it also helps fade the color out and give that transparent look as well. So when I want to lay color down, I push a little harder on the brush, rub in a little bit harder with it, and that can be the difference between laying color down and then just blending the color together. So that's really up to you. You can do this in any combination you want. Just make sure you have a variety of heavier color and then some lighter color, as you can see in between, and that helps create the cloud effect that we're going for. So as you can see, I'm getting more phthalo green, and I'm keeping it more to the green side on the right here, where there's going to be all this planetary debris that's going to be exploding and lighting up everything down there. So you really can do this in any combination you want. Just make sure that where things are bright and where the explosion is happening, that the clouds are a little bit brighter by adding more titanium white in that area. So this is really up to you. There's no right or wrong. This is a freestyle, open, anything you want to do. Just make sure you have a variety, like I said, of heavier and lighter brush strokes for the cloud formations to create the depth and the different dimensions of it. And of course with dry brushing you can see through it to see the star still, and that just really helps create this depth of space. Okay, now just picking up plain titanium white. I have not cleaned my brush off yet, and with that I'm using my number 4 natural bristle round brush. And again, if you have not checked out the description box below, please do so, as I do list all the brushes that I'm using there. And as I've said, you can use any brush you want that works, or whatever you have, because any brush will pretty much work. I just like the natural bristle because for me it helps to make clouds better, I believe, and I've had better success with the natural bristles dry brushing it in this way than, say, using more water or other types of brushes. But that's just me. Everybody has their own style, so find out what works for you. This is what I love about acrylic painting. There really is no rules, except for, of course, the general rules that say that when things get further away, of course, they get smaller, you know, things of that sort. But this is really all anything you want to do. So I'm just getting white, as you can see, and I'm putting it in both places. And I'm just going to brighten some things up here and there. Now taking my hair dryer again, and with that just going to give it a quick dry. And now I'm going to take some white chalk and also my roll of painter's tape, and I'm just going to set that about where I want it, about like so, and then I'm just going to go ahead and trace out for my planet. So now grabbing my 1/2 inch angle brush, because with that it helps me to make more precision lines, and I want to stay in my lines here to make this planet very round. And so mostly black, a little bit of phthalo blue, and with the edge of my brush I'm going to just trace out and follow my chalk line like so. So in this bottom left quadrant of this planet where it's darker, I want to have more of a black, dark looking planet like so. And so I'm going to fill in just for this part of it, and then when I come up here I'm going to gently just brush along right where it starts to come up into the blue, and just creep that guy along and do like so. And now it looks very blended and more natural that way. Okay, so now I'm going to take that blue color that I made before. It's going to have a little phthalo blue, a touch of black, and titanium white here. And as you can see on my palette, I've got colors that are right next to the ones that I'm mixing, and that really helps me to compare one color to the other ones that I've put down to see if I'm going to get any differences at all. Because that's the very important thing when it comes to similar colors coming into one picture, and then you really want to make sure that you can tell the difference of what's going on. So that's a good way to look at that. So now taking my angle brush again, and this time going into some of that lighter blue and black color I made, and I'm just going to create some of these land masses that you see here within this planet. So now I'm taking some chalk again, and with this I'm going to just map out the general placement of what's going to be all these distant and closer rocks and debris and asteroids that are exploding out of this planet, and so it's going to create sort of this ring around it, and there's going to be some distant ones behind that, and then there'll be some bigger ones in the foreground, and that just helps to place everything correctly and know where to go with everything, because I don't want to have everything the same size or in some weird spot. So there was definitely kind of a pattern I wanted this to follow in a way to make it look more interesting. So with that blue and black, and again it's mostly permanent black with a touch of blue, I'm taking my angle brush, and with the tip of it I'm just gonna dab on these irregular dot-like shapes, and these are just far away asteroids, and as I come closer to the foreground they're gonna get bigger and bigger, and then of course I'll go on there with some highlights. So now hitting it with the hairdryer again because I want to add some highlights onto these rocks. And the thing about depth and texture with painting is that if you don't dry it out and you just continually put layers upon layers and you're trying to build texture, it's going to end up mixing with all the other wet colors. And again, if you mix a bunch of colors together, you're going to get this really dark or muted color, and then you're going to lose all the texture and it's going to look all just like one color, really flat and boring. So don't want to do that. So I've got the warm colors, as you can see now, and they're heavy body paints, because regular paints that I am using that are not heavy body are more transparent, and with these warm colors, especially yellow, it's very transparent, and so with heavy body it's going to help not to have to create as many depths of layers, and that saves time and paint, and it just looks more vibrant. So with some of that orange, and as you can see it's very faded, that first coat. It's not very bright at all, and it looks very transparent almost, but that's just going to be a base coat. And so I'm just going to base coat this thing with the general colors of where I'd like to see within this fiery explosion. So you got the orange that I put down, and now I'm just taking some of this cad yellow, and with my angle brush again I'm just going to go in here and just dab that in. And oops, I'm sorry, it's not my angle brush, it's my number 4 flat brush. So this is a little bit smaller than that 1/2 inch angle brush, because this is a lot smaller and there's more details that I want to pop out of there. And so this was more, for me, an ideal brush to use. So I'm going to work this color back and forth, and as you can see I've put some red in there now, and I want red to be closer to the crust of the Earth, or whatever planet this is. And then as it comes away from there out into the explosion, it's going to get brighter and more yellow, and I'm going to add some white into there as well. So this is really just about playing these colors back and forth, and generally just putting these colors where I'd like to see them. So this is what's going to build more texture, and I'm going to be doing a lot of drying in between the layers, and then redoing everything that you see I'm doing now. And each time I do that, it gets more deep, it becomes more detailed, and it gets more vibrant. And so you can do this as many times as you want, and that just depends on how real and how deep and how bright and vibrant you want this to look. Now just taking that flat brush again and going into some of this darker color and adding some of that cadmium orange in there. And with that I'm just going to create more of these irregular rock asteroids that are going to be exploding out of here. And I want this to look like part of that ring that's going around it. on top of these other rocks that are more lit up by the explosions. So I'm going to have to vary this color back and forth and make some bigger, some of these rocks smaller. And in this way it creates depth, and it also creates this realism, and it makes it look like there's an actual explosion happening and these rocks are flying out of there. Now I'm taking some of this Phthalo Blue and Cadmium Orange, and when you put blue and orange together, because they are complementary, it dulls each of those colors back. So I wanted to dull the orange down, and then take my flat brush again, and with that I'm going to create more of these asteroid-like looking things, and they're going to be a little bit smaller than the darker ones that I've already done, because again I want that to look like this light is lighting up the asteroids and making them more bright than say the ones on the outside. So after drying this layer again, now I've got another dry layer here on top of this so I don't ruin this texture I've made. I'm going to go back over it now with this bright cadmium yellow, and each time I do this where I dab in another color on top of this, I'm not going to cover everything up, because again I don't want to lose that texture and that change in color. And before I add another color, I'm going to go back in again and dry it out. And like I said, you can do this as many times as you want. Go in there with a color, don't cover everything up. Blow dry it, or if you live somewhere where it's dry enough, maybe you can just wait a few minutes and it'll be dry enough. So that's all I'm going to do for the yellow there, and then the hair dryer, of course. And now I'm taking some red on top of this dry paint, and I'm going to redefine this edge again that got covered up before. So I'm going to have to redefine, I'm going to have to rediscover, or re-reveal I should say, some of the colors that do get covered up in the process. But every time I uncover and recover and dry and put a new coat on, again that just adds more layers of texture, and that means that this is going to look more bright and more real. Now just grabbing plain cadmium orange, and again not covering everything up, and going through another round of this. Now going into this dark orange, muted down with some phthalo blue, teeny bit of permanent black in there, and with that I'm just going to take my brush now and just redefine some of this asteroid stuff that got covered up. So again, as you can see, I'm rediscovering, re-revealing, redefining stuff that gets covered up here and there. But every time I do that, like I said, the depth gets more, the vibrance gets more, and it's well worth going through over and over again. Now taking my brush and taking that permanent black and a little bit of phthalo blue, and I'm going to go in there and create some of these asteroids now that look like they're part of this outer ring. And as you can see now, between the muted orange ones that are in the flame and then these ones that are outside of it and a little bit bigger, it creates what looks like this exploding debris coming out, where there's some still trapped in the flame because they're a little bit lit up by the flame, and then there's the ones on the outside that you can see now that are dark and that are actually in front of that. So that helps create that realism and more of that depth as well. So now again, just going back in there and dabbing in some more of this cadmium yellow and just working these layers back and forth until I get the desired look that I'm going for. Okay, and now I'm taking my brush, and with that same muted orange color with the phthalo blue in it, I put a little bit of titanium white in that, and I'm just going to hit just part of this asteroid formation here and there on some of the rocks to give them some of this glow highlight, because they will have some of that flame color on them. Obviously not as much as what's coming out of the flame itself because they've been shot out, but I do want them to show that they did come from this explosion, so they do have to have some of that orangey red kind of glow to it. So I'm going to mix some of those colors back and forth. I'm going to add some titanium white, as you can see, in more areas where the direct light of the flame is hitting these, and then more of an off red or orange color where the direct light is not hitting it, but it's still getting that glow from the flame. Now getting that permanent black and a touch of that phthalo blue in there, and I'm going to go back into this asteroid now and knock back some of that highlight color and sort of use that to kind of shape the rock a little bit more. So again, this is what's really cool about acrylics, is you can knock back colors with any color and cover them over and play them back however you want until you get what you want. Okay, moving away from the asteroids now and go back to my planet. So on the very top, I want it very bright, where a lot of light is hitting it. And so with phthalo green, touch of phthalo blue, mostly titanium white. And so when I say mostly titanium white, I don't mean a ton of paint on my brush. In fact, I'm putting hardly any paint on my brush at a time, because too much paint will just get really messy and sloppy and something that you got to deal with and fix and wait to dry and all that. So it's always better to use less paint than you think you're going to need, because you can always add more, but taking it off is really a pain. So now with that color, I'm just scratching it in on top, and that same method I said before, where you creep the brush along the canvas as you get down here a little bit more, and barely just touch the canvas and it'll blend right into what you already have. So I'm going to progressively make this top a little bit brighter. So now I'm grabbing more titanium white. I have not cleaned my brush yet because I still want that color on there to blend in and look more natural. Otherwise it's going to look like this really hard white line that just appeared out of nowhere, and when you look at it you're going to be like, oh my god, what's that white streak going on? Is there bird crap on this thing? So just want to gradually build it up and then bring that line down. And then, like I said, I'll take more of this color and then fade it out by barely scratching the surface as I come down. Now going back to my number 4 round natural bristle brush, I'm going to take some of that Phthalo Green, just a teeny bit of that Phthalo Blue, mostly titanium white, color-wise that is, and barely any color on my brush. And I'm going to dry brush that up now and just brighten some spots up here and there where I'm going to have more light illuminating out of the explosion area. Now taking my number 4 natural bristle brush now, and I'm just going to put some titanium white and just barely any of that cad yellow in there. And with that color, I'm going to barely put any of that on my brush and dip it into some matte medium. And that's going to help make this color transparent as I brush it out like so, and it's going to create these light sort of rays that are illuminating out of the explosion. Now just picking up plain titanium white, and again just a teeny tiny bit of color, I mean hardly at all, and it's mostly matte medium that's going to be carrying this pigment and creating more of this light ray now that you see. Okay, and so if I didn't tell you yet, I think I have in other videos, but you can definitely use your finger to blend stuff out. I've been doing it a lot, as you can see. That's a-okay. Finger painting is allowed in the acrylic world, just so you know. And so with that, I'm just going to do that here and there, make things look a little bit more natural and blend it in. And now I'm going to redefine the bottom of this planet with that darker color again, and just sort of redefine just some things here and there that got sort of covered up. Okay, so after adding some more layers within the explosion and redefining some stuff and some general highlights, now I want to take just pure titanium white and I want to hit just some certain areas here and there where the light of the explosion is directly hitting some of the edges of these asteroids. And now I want a few bright stars that are shining and illuminating through some of this cosmic cloud areas. So I'm going to take the colors that are already there. So in this case, right here in this area, there would be more of that phthalo blue color with titanium white in it to make it a little bit brighter. But I want to create a glow out of that star before the actual star itself. So now taking that phthalo green color again and lightening it up and creating the glow first. And then in the center of these, I want to put just pure titanium white. And I want to sort of blend that into that wet color a little bit and gradually sort of build that up so it looks like the star is just shining and lighting up the color of that cosmic cloud coming through. Pick up some of just the cadmium red and I want to enter that in as well on some of these rocks here and there, and that red against some of that glowing orange is going to really help create the effect of some of that glowing effect off of the flame and off the explosion that's hitting some of the rocks. Now just picking up pure titanium white, and I have not cleaned my brush off in between this red and the other stuff. I just more or less wiped it off, and that's just to help create more of a blend and create this highlight that pops out while keeping the red glow kind of off from that. That helps show the changing light as you come away from it and how it just sort of intercepts into the shadow and gives it that realistic looking effect on it. So now, without wiping off my brush again, I'm just taking pure titanium white, and I only want to go just in certain places. And as you can see, check out how bright this thing becomes. Just like that, a little titanium white into that orange, and you can really make this guy really pop and really shine. Look at all that awesome glow coming out now. Okay, and so I'm going to call this good, and I'm going to take my script liner brush now, lots of water, some titanium white, and I'm just going to go ahead and sign this piece right here. I want to thank you guys so much for watching, and please don't forget to subscribe and share with your friends, families, and neighbors. And if anybody would like a certain picture painted, a certain subject matter, whatever it is that you have in mind and you want to see the painting process of that, please feel free to leave a comment down below. I would love to paint anything you guys have in mind and would like to see painted. So until next time, guys, happy painting, and I will see y'all in the next video.